bringing that story to us. I now invite Hayat Mirshad from Female, Lebanon.
Good evening, everybody. I know it's the closing panel. I'm taller. It's the closing panel, so all of you are tired. I'll try to brief as much as I can. First, my heart is beating fast. I would like really to thank all the organizers, Mrs. Ellen Chesler, Nataya, WLP, Mahnaz Afkhami, and Catherine Harrington for giving me really this chance to be here between you today. Standing at the age of 26 between these pioneering and leading feminist activists is really something very encouraging for me. I will address my evolution as a young feminist in Lebanon. Feminist activism is nothing new to Lebanon. Lebanese women have been struggling all along, as have women all over the world. But in truth, the patriarchal mentality has slowed down women's evolution in our society. Facts demolish one of the widest spread myths that Lebanese women are the most liberated women in the Arab world. Many in Lebanese society still consider it impossible to vote for a woman for elected offices because they think women lack strength and intelligence to stand up for themselves and others. Currently in the Lebanese parliament, we have 128 deputies distributed between Muslims and Christians. We have only 4 women, which is 3% of the whole parliament. Lebanese women are still treated as second-class citizens, where Lebanese women who are married from non-Lebanese men cannot give their nationality to their husband and to their children. Eventually, children of Lebanese women are not deemed citizens and treated as foreigners in their mother's homeland. The Lebanese Penal Code still has various discriminatory laws against women, such as Article 522, which exonerate the rapist of his crime if he marries the victim. There is no law that protects girls from harassment. The patriarchal and religious norms and practices led to the regular increase in early marriage rate in the absence of a law that bans it. Family laws and life in Lebanon are also still governed by varying-minded sectarianism. After presenting this brief, it's very brief because we have many discrimination, background about women's situation in my country, allow me to introduce you to my experience as a young feminist and a human rights activist, also a journalist struggling for equality, democracy, and peace in my society. At the age of 15, after I stumbled across a book entitled Women and Sex from the feminist Egyptian writer Nawal Saadawi, the first revolution ignited inside me. It was a text that would have an enormous impact on my point of view. Nawal unveiled in her book the injustices experienced by women in the Arab world, and it brought into my mind the injustices I lived myself and my friends. Reading Saadawi was a turning point in my life. I grew very passionate about women's rights, and this passion led me to read a lot about this issue and to watch various documentaries and to write articles of my own, so I became a journalist that writes about women's issues. I started identifying myself with time as an advocate for women's rights and as a proud feminist. Of course, it's not easy to be a feminist in Lebanon, because if you call yourself a feminist, you have to believe that there needs to be a revolution against patriarchy. The patriarchal society didn't ask for permission when it discriminated against women, when it controlled us, so we should not ask for permission to revolt against it. Yes, I am a feminist because I deeply believe that there is so much to be done so long as Lebanese society continues to be heavily influenced by patriarchal culture and sectarian democracy. The discrimination and oppression my mother and grandmother and female friends have endured inspires the work I do today. I am a feminist because society tells us that the rape victim is somehow to blame. I am a feminist because a close friend of mine was raped at the age of 20 by a drunk bus driver and didn't dare to speak up under the fear of being labeled as a whore. I am a feminist because as a woman, I am both discriminated against and misrepresented. I am a feminist because when I take charge of a situation, I am labeled as bossy, pushy, or even demanding. But when my brother or male counterparts take the same action, they are called authoritative and heralded for their strong leadership skills. I am a feminist because when after marrying, I didn't want to have children hastily. I was considered strange and selfish, whereas my husband was never questioned. I am a feminist because when I got pregnant, everyone wished that I get a baby boy. And when I delivered my baby boy, their wishes turned to may you get him a brother soon. Because of all this and many, many other reasons, I decided to stand up for the rights of women, for my rights, to act and to struggle for change. I began at the age of 18 by participating in various campaigns and initiatives, where my ultimate aim was always to promote equality and to change attitudes and actions that abuse, exploit, discriminate against, and oppress women and all marginalized groups. With time, I acquired an unshakable belief in and respect for individual difference and freedom, for diversity among people, for women and LGBT rights, citizenship rights, social, gender, and legal equality, and the necessity to create a civil state in Lebanon. My first activism was through CRTDA, the Collective for Research and Training on Development, a non-governmental organization based in Beirut. I worked with CRTDA for 4 years as a project officer of the Active Citizenship and Gendered Social Entitlements project. Working on such a project led me to persist on fighting for citizenship as a means to social, political, and economic participation in society. At CRTDA as well, I was and still until now an active volunteer at the Lebanese Women Right to Nationality campaign. My ultimate happiness derives from holding empowering and leadership trainings for the concerned women and their families, and this was by the support of Women Learning Partnership, WLP, started by Mahnaz Afkhami. During these trainings, women shared lots of stories about the challenges that their husbands and children face, starting with education and not ending with healthcare, ownership, and social security, etc. In addition, I have participated in and led a number of campaigns urging MPs to approve a draft law to protect women from domestic violence. I organized a protest in July 2013 before the Lebanese parliament following Rola Yaqoub's death. Rola Yaqoub is a 31-year-old woman who was found beaten and unconscious by their neighbors, and later they reported that her husband used to beat her and her 5 little girls. But of course, she didn't dare to speak up like many women who were affected by domestic violence. And today, at the time I am standing with you now, I received news that say another Lebanese woman was killed today by her husband, and she was buried in the garden of his house. Here also I would like to mention some statistics. We discovered that 24 women has been killed in case of domestic violence between 2010 and 2013 in Lebanon. Also later on, the media reported 7 additional cases only between January and March 2014. But the members of the parliament and the religious leaders remained silent. Now, recently at the 1st of April this year, they approved the law that protects women against domestic violence. I have no time to speak about the amendments, but it was approved with very critical amendments. So it's not a total victory, just we can say it's a partial achievement after all this struggle. During these years of activism, I have found that the media representation of women is the most harmful. The image of women in media is still a patriarchal one. The Lebanese media don't care for civil society causes and for women's issues. So I soon found myself searching for a platform to raise awareness about women's issues away from fashion, astrology, cooking, and other content that media focuses on. So I co-founded with a group of young women and feminist activists, Female, which is a non-profit, civil, non-sectarian Lebanese organization. We work to ensure women's rights as part of human rights. We also work to change the stereotyping and the image of women in media and the objectification of women in media. Also, we advocate for various causes and for the aim of changing discriminatory Lebanese law and raising awareness about women's issues in media and social media, mass and social media. Female's first initiative was the first feminist radio program in Lebanon and the Middle East, entitled A Partner But Not Yet Equal. It is aiming to raise awareness about women's rights in Lebanese society by airing interviews with pioneering figures campaigning for gender equality. I anchor and produce the show purely on a volunteer basis. In addition, of course, we have launched various awareness-raising campaigns, online campaigns, and through media. Also, maybe I don't have time to speak about them. At the same time, in addition to that, I'm volunteering to manage the media work of various feminist organizations because the women's organizations in Lebanon have a big problem with media. Some of them even don't have a Facebook page, don't use social media, and didn't build a good relation with media, and this will affect their cause. So I try to help in this issue. I'm also a trainer on subjects related to women's rights and media. Also, recently in June 2014, the Daily Star, which is the leading English newspaper in the Middle East, wrote a feature, I'm proud to say this, about me and my colleague Ali Awada. It was a part of a series of weekly articles interviewing pioneering Lebanese women. They described us as the young feminist leaders who has been championing women's causes over the last few years in Lebanon. My activism will, of course, not stop here, but I will continue until my last breath. Who knows, maybe I'll be able to achieve my biggest dream, which is founding a feminist party in Lebanon. I will remain a proud post-feminist and post-patriarchy and never give up struggling until a rotten society, a rotten system is smashed. I predict, of course, a long and difficult path, but I still have hope that change will happen, and I will not stop fighting for it. Also, at the end, please, while I'm standing between you here and speaking about women's and girls' rising, I can't forget that I'm coming from a region which is continuously subjected to extremist practices, dictatorships, occupation, injustice, armed conflicts, and invasions. I'm here, while I'm here and everywhere, I stand and I invite you all to stand for the rights of women who are being raped, killed, buried alive, remaining homeless, sold in markets, and subjected to different forms of violence, and facing or fighting against all these injustices. I stand for all these women in my homeland, Lebanon, in Iraq, in Iran, in Syria, in occupied Palestinian territory, in Saudi Arabia, in Libya, and all these countries. And at the end, I wrote a question for Mrs. Clinton, but they didn't take it, unfortunately. It's really disappointing how all, if we can say, the countries with power and the international community either simply ignores, or support these extremists and these injustices. So as a human rights activist, it's really disappointing for me. At the end, I think that change can be possible only with persistence and solidarity among all feminists and marginalized individuals worldwide. I will repeat what Mrs. Mahnaz said yesterday, we are not afraid of ISIS, we are not afraid of occupation, we are not afraid of dictatorships. We will unite, we will fight, and we will rise. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayat. One of the things that I love with my activism is when I meet young activists. You go back with a lot of energy. And your story of reading Nawal and becoming a feminist is so important for all of us that are older. Because sometimes we believe we have been activists or writing, and nothing, we haven't changed people. So your story is an important experience to show that the intergenerational dialogue among feminists is very important. Just to hear you saying, I am a feminist because these and these and these reasons gives us, right, Charlotte? Right, Roxana? It makes us feel that we have been doing something.